Properties of parallelograms. They're at the top of your page. I would highlight this section because you do need to know it. There are 4 properties to parallelograms. And everything we learned today, they're parallelograms, so they have these properties as well. So the first one dealt with opposite sides. So what do we know about opposite sides of a parallelogram? Jace? They're congruent and parallel. Congruent and parallel. Okay. Just pure knowledge. The second one, opposite angles. What do we know about opposite angles? Just Jace. Come on, guys. Come on up. They're congruent. If they weren't opposite, what was the other?
Consecutive.
They're consecutive. Okay, good. What do we know about consecutive angles? Supplementary. And then the last one. Diagonals bisect each other. Ella, I know you do it. So basically, if you have a parallelogram, pick a semi-easy number.
Miss Marshall?
Yes, you say Mandy?
Maggie.
Sounded like Mandy. Anyways. Okay, pick an easy number for me.
4.
Okay, an easy number that's a degree.
99.
30, sure. Y'all are crazy. Okay, so let's say this was 30 degrees. How many other angles in this parallelogram are going to be 30 degrees? One of them, and where is it? Across from it? Good. So then how would I figure out what this angle is, or this one? Yeah, so these two are going to be supplementary. 180 minus 30 would make 150, which means 150. Here's also a way to remember it. How many degrees fit inside of a quadrilateral? 360 degrees, right? So what is 30 plus 150? 180. 30 plus 150 is still 180. What's 180 plus 180? 360. Okay. We'll talk more about it in a bit. We're going to do 1 and 3. We're going to skip some things and go back to them tomorrow so that we get like a general review for today. You will have a section like this on your quiz tomorrow where you have to state the theorem that you use to show the quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Basically, you tell me what property is being shown.
Opposite angles are congruent.
It's correct. So because these opposite angles are marked congruent, or they both have the same measure, that is the reason that this is a parallelogram. So you're going to say opposite angles are congruent. And that's the reason. All right, we're going to do 2 tomorrow. Number 3, this would be like on the math quiz on Tuesday, not really tomorrow. But find the value of x that makes the quadrilateral a parallelogram. Are we given sides or diagonals? Sides. What do we know about sides that are across from each other? They're congruent and parallel. So what do we know about 3x plus 5? What is it going to equal? Equals 41. But that's not what x equals. I'm getting there. Hold on. Subtract 5. What's 41 minus 5? 36. So then x equals 12. Good. I don't know why there's a 14 and 15 at the bottom of your page. You can cross them out because couldn't tell you why. We're going to flip. Find the indicated measure in parallelogram ABCD. Explain your reasoning. So here's how I know it's a parallelogram. This symbol means parallelogram, and I would write that down if I were you. Parallelogram. Reason being, you're going to learn about a rhombus, and a rhombus looks very similar to a parallelogram, but has more properties that do not apply to a parallelogram. It's a more specific parallelogram. So this one, how many properties does a parallelogram have in general? 4 properties. We just said them on the last page. So we're going to use those properties to find measures. All right? So number 8, we're doing 8, 10, 12, 14. Number 8, is it a side or a diagonal? It's a side. And so opposite sides are congruent. So what is CD going to measure? 16. AE, is it a side or a diagonal? It's a diagonal. It's part of a diagonal. What do I know about diagonals? They bisect each other. Yeah. They cut each other in half, so that means E is the halfway point. So then what would the length of AE be? 7. Next one we have BCD, which is this entire angle. It will be 120. So, how did I know that 120 was the entire measure of A? Because it's pointing to this arc. Yeah, good. The last one we need to find is ADC. ADC, so it's the whole angle. So is it 43 degrees? No, that's only a piece of it. So what can I use to find the measure of it?
120 minus.
Yep. Nope. Well, no. So A and D, are consecutive. So 180 minus 120 makes 60.
So you subtract.
You subtract 180 minus 120, and then you would get 60. I'm sure there's there's no other way to do it.
Yeah,
There's no other angles that you know.
I thought you said you subtract 120 by 43. I was like,
No. All right, so you're going to stay on this page. We're going to talk about special parallelograms. There are 3 of them. So you're going to stick right here, this section. We're going to talk about all 3 of them. The first one is called a rhombus. A rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. So I would define it and then draw it on your picture. So a rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. So because it's a parallelogram, I know that it has, what do I know about its opposite sides? Congruent, parallel, opposite angles are congruent, consecutive, supplementary. So because it's a parallelogram, it has all 4 of those properties. We're also going to learn a couple extra that is specific to a rhombus. Okay? The next one, what do we think the one to the left looks like? Or is that to the right? It's your right, sorry. It looks like a rectangle. A rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. So again, a rectangle has the same properties as a parallelogram. It has a couple extra. So if you took a rhombus and a rectangle and put them together, what would their baby look like?
Square.
I heard it. It's a square. So a square has 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. I would have written down a little bit of the definition. Alright, so here's what you need to know. A square is a type of rhombus. So whenever we learn the rhombus properties, they apply to a square. A square is also a rectangle, a type of rectangle. So whenever you learn a rectangle property, you're learning a square property as well. So here is a different way to look at it. Does anybody have a mix of dog, like a breeded mix? What you got? That's in one. What about you? Is that not called anything? But you're musky. What you got, Jordan?
I had a husky mixed with a chocolate.
Chusky? No. Okay, so let's do that. Choco Husky. I like it. Choco Husky. Alright, so he has a chocolate lab husky mix, right? Okay. So it has the properties of a chocolate lab, right? And it has the properties of a husky. Okay? It also has the properties of a dog in general. And a dog is a type of mammal, right? You're in biology. Hopefully you've learned that. What makes a mammal a mammal?
It's warm.
Warm-blooded. What else? Fur.
And it doesn't lay eggs.
It doesn't have wings.
And it doesn't lay eggs. Okay, so all those things. So those are the characteristics. Please listen. Those are the characteristics of a mammal. Because a chocolate husky is a mammal, it has those characteristics as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We all get it in the context of a dog. It has the characteristics of a chocolate lab, the characteristics of a husky, and characteristics of a dog in general. So the same thing happens here with the square. The square has the properties of a rhombus and a rectangle. And it has all four properties of a parallelogram as well. So what's going to happen is tomorrow you're going to be given a property. And you're going to have to tell me which quadrilaterals that applies to. If it applies to one of these two, it applies to a square as well. Does that make sense? So I'll give you an example in a bit. I'm very interested to see what your dogs look like because I've never heard of any of these things. My sister just got a dog, and it's cool, and I like it. It's like I think it's a boxer and pointer mix.
Pointer?
It's like a hunting dog. So when she stands, she like literally points, like her.
I know what you're talking about.
This is like her. No, it's not a dog. Picture.
Yeah, that's wow.
But that's what she looks like
That don't
when
look
she
right.
when she stands, like angled. She called a pointer because that's her nose.
That looks like a carrot.
Your mom? So sorry. All right, moving on.
It's my show.
Sorry. It's terrible. Okay.
You know my mom.
I do know your mom is terrible. So sorry. Okay. And we're recording. Moving on. This is a Venn diagram. This is a Venn diagram of all of what we just said, just to kind of visually show you. All of these are parallelograms, so they all have opposite sides congruent, yada yada. These are rhombuses. What makes them a rhombus?
They have four congruent
Four congruent sides. Good. All of these are rectangles. What makes them rectangles?
They have four right.
Four right angles. And then in the middle of them, it's a square. So again, a square has these properties, and these properties, because it's all of the above. Okay. So we're gonna learn some properties after we do this problem. There'll be a problem like this on your quiz. This is the next page. I think there are like 10 of them on here. You're going to be given a picture. La página. Okay.
She is right at this
Anyways, you're going to have like 10-ish questions where you'll have to tell me what the picture is. Like, okay, so you know. This is a rhombus. You have to tell me why it's a rhombus. So what's the first tip off? We had a rhombus here. So we had four congruent sides, but why did I know it was not a square?
No, four congruent.
And no right angles, we'll say that. But you could also say that, Gage. I almost called you Gabe. I was trying not to. So it's a rhombus because it had four congruent sides and then no right angles. So if this one was 70, how many other angles were 70? One of them. This one. What would the other two missing angles be? 110 and 110. I don't know. But this, so because this is a rhombus is a type of parallelogram. So opposite angles are congruent, consecutive angles are supplementary. Okay. Again, you'll have a section of this on your quiz. It's not meant to be difficult. All right. So we're going to talk about a rhombus. A rhombus has all the properties of a parallelogram. This is point 1. So all properties of a parallelogram. Hopefully you know what those are, now that we've actually said them. The second thing, what is the very definition of a rhombus? Four congruent sides. Yeah. So all sides are congruent. You could say four congruent sides. Both are correct. So that's the second property. All the sides are the same. The the third is new to you. Its diagonals are perpendicular. So new to you. Its diagonals are perpendicular. So does this apply to all parallelograms? No. But what else does it apply to? A square. So a rhombus and a square, their diagonals are perpendicular. So if you don't remember perpendicular, what does this mean to us? They intersect and form 90. Good. Alright, so the diagonals here are in blue. I just highlighted them. They intersect and they form 90 right here. So that means all of these angles are 90. They don't write it because it looks dumb. So it's just understood. We'll go from there. There's one more. It's about diagonals as well. The diagonals bisect opposite angles. So the diagonals bisect opposite angles. And bisect means
Split it.
cut in half, yeah. Alright, so what we're going to do is this problem at the bottom of the page. We're going to find the measures of the numbered angles in the rhombus ABCD. So what shape do we have? A rhombus. How do we know it's a rhombus? Says in the directions. My life. So you need to make sure you read the directions because it has the properties of a parallelogram and then a couple extra. Okay? So you have to make sure we know what we're talking about. You're going to find the measure of three angles. So off to the side, you're going to say the measure of angle 1 equals, measure of angle 2 equals, measure of angle 3 equals. This is so I don't have to go looking for it, because if I do, I'm just not. So, we'll start with angle 1. Angle 1 is directly between my two diagonals. So what did we learn about diagonals? They're perpendicular, so she is correct. What's the measure of angle 1? 90. The measure of angle 2, what relationship does 61 have with the measure of angle 2? Alternate interior, which means they are congruent, so the measure of angle 2 is 61. We also learned, to find angle 3, we learned that diagonals bisect angles. So if this piece of angle A is 61 degrees, what does angle 3 measure? 61 degrees. Again, this is only on a rhombus, not on a regular parallelogram. So the last one. Here's I think the easiest way. This is a triangle, right? So we have 90 and we have 61. So to find the missing angle, you can add them up. Subtract from 180. What's 61 plus 90? 151. Subtract from 180. 29. Good. You flip. These won't be on tomorrow's quiz, but they definitely will be on Mondays or Tuesdays. You know. Alright, a rectangle. So you're in the middle-ish of the page, or nope, dead middle of the page. Rectangle is a type of parallelogram, so it has all the properties of a parallelogram. Second thing, what do we know about rectangles?
4 congruent angles.
Oh wait, rectangle.
Yeah, so they have 4 congruent right angles. Or all angles are 90. However you want to say it. That's what makes them special. And then the last one is pretty easy. Diagonals are congruent. If you even want to write whole diagonals. So like whatever the length of DB is, it's going to be the same length as AC. So the whole diagonal is congruent to the whole diagonal. We're going to go to the next page. This is the last math we do for today. In rectangle QRST, QS, the length of QS is 5x minus 31. The length of RT is 2x plus 11. Find the lengths of the diagonals of QRST. What shape is this?
Rectangle.
Rectangle, I know it because it told me. And then, are we talking about side lengths here?
No.
What are we talking about? Diagonals. In a rectangle, what do I know about the diagonals? They're congruent. So what am I going to do with these two? Set them equal. So 5x minus 31 equals 2x plus 11. I'm going to move my smaller x. What do I do next? Add 31. 11 plus 31 is 42. Divide by 3 and x equals 14. Is this what it asked me to find? No, I need to find the lengths. So what am I going to do to find the lengths? Plug it in. You can plug it into both. This is my 6th time doing it today, so I'm going to plug it into RT because it's easy. What's 2 times 14? 28 plus 11 is 39, which means QS is also 39. You can always plug it in to check, but I don't want to do 5 times 14. The last thing we do, we've just been saying it over and over again, properties of a square. There are no new properties. So it has all the properties of a parallelogram, all the properties of a rhombus, and all the properties of a rectangle. So what I would do is, however you want to group together the properties and remember them, how would you do that? Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you something like this. All angles are 90 degrees, and you have to tell me everything that applies to. So what shape or shapes does this apply to? All angles are 90. Square, rectangle. Okay? Opposite angles are congruent. What does this apply to? Square, rectangle, rhombus, parallelograms. This is one of the 4 basic properties. Remember those 4 that we keep saying over and over again? Diagonals bisect angles. This would be a rhombus and a square. Diagonals bisect each other. Square, rectangle, rhombus, parallelogram. It's one of the 4. So you have to be able to do that. Does that make sense? So however you want to group it together, I would to study. You're going to take out your textbook and a sheet of paper. You're going to go to page 393.